The scent of polished mahogany and stale ambition usually clung to our home, a subtle, suffocating perfume I had grown accustomed to. It was the smell of my life, meticulously arranged, impeccably presented. Today, however, there was a faint whisper of something else, a fleeting, sweet floral note that wasn't mine, nor any of the approved household fragrances. It was as ephemeral as a secret, yet it settled in the air around my husband's bespoke suit jacket, draped carelessly over a dining chair. He was late again, a predictable rhythm in our otherwise unremarkable marriage. The antique grandfather clock in the hall chimed 7 times, each note a deliberate pronouncement of my solitude. I sat at the head of our grand dining table, the damask tablecloth pristine, the silver gleam reflecting the flickering candlelight. A meal prepared to exacting standards, now slowly cooling. This tableau, a silent testament to propriety and expectation, was my everyday. My marriage to Robert wasn't born of passion, but of legacy, a careful alignment of powerful families, a strategic merger of old money and influence. We moved through our days with a practiced politeness, a detached respect. Our conversations were factual, our interactions formal. There was no fire, no discord, just a quiet, sustained hum of mutual obligation. And for years, that had been enough. I had convinced myself it was all I needed, all I could expect. But that wisp of unfamiliar scent, layered over his usual expensive cologne, stirred something. Not anger, not even betrayal in the traditional sense. It was a cold, quiet realization, like watching a perfectly balanced stack of cards begin to lean, almost imperceptibly, before the inevitable collapse. There was no grand scene, no accusations hurled. Just the undeniable certainty of a woman's intuition, a silent calculation in the quiet chambers of my mind. He had found solace elsewhere, and in that understanding, a curious space opened within me, a recognition that perhaps I was not as bound as I believed. It was 2 days later, at the annual benefit gala for the city's historical society, that I first saw her. The ballroom of the old Metropolitan Hotel was a dazzling spectacle of crystal chandeliers and hushed chatter, a familiar gilded cage. I was navigating a polite conversation with Senator Thornton about obscure architectural preservation bylaws when my gaze drifted across the room. And then I saw her. She stood near the sprawling orchid display, a vibrant splash of color against the muted opulence. Patricia. Her name, I would learn later, was as spirited as her presence. Her dark, curly hair, untamed yet elegant, cascaded around a face that was all sharp angles and soft curves. Her eyes, the color of rich, warm amber, held a mischievous glint, a knowing spark that seemed to dance with the ambient light. She wore a dress of deep emerald green, a bold choice that suited her form in a way that was both sophisticated and utterly magnetic, highlighting the graceful line of her neck and the subtle curve of her collarbones. Unlike the carefully curated composure around her, Patricia exuded an effortless, almost wild energy. She moved with a fluid grace, a confidence that wasn't arrogant, but utterly self-assured. She was laughing at something someone said, a genuine, uninhibited sound that cut through the polite murmur of the room, drawing eyes, including mine, towards her. I felt a strange, almost imperceptible pull, a flicker of intrigue disguised as polite observation. She was utterly unlike anyone in my carefully constructed world, a stark contrast to the porcelain dolls and tailored suits that populated my daily existence. There was an audacious beauty to her, a raw authenticity that felt both exhilarating and slightly dangerous. My gaze lingered for a beat too long, and as if sensing it, she turned her head, her amber eyes locking with mine across the crowded room. A small, knowing smile played on her lips. It wasn't flirtatious, not yet. It was something more profound, a recognition. A feeling that she saw me, truly saw past the expensive silk and the polished facade. A shiver, not of cold, but of something far more potent, traced its way down my spine. It was a sensation I hadn't felt in years, if ever. And in that moment, a tiny, Almost imperceptible crack formed in the meticulously maintained wall around my heart. The evening, which had promised only predictable pleasantries, had suddenly taken an unexpected turn. The memory of Patricia's smile, that knowing glance across the ballroom, lingered with an unexpected tenacity in the days that followed. It was a subtle disturbance in the quiet rhythm of my life, a dissonant note in an otherwise perfectly orchestrated symphony. I found myself replaying the moment, the way her eyes had met mine, the warmth that had seemed to radiate from her even at a distance. It was unsettling, this preoccupation with a stranger, yet I couldn't seem to shake it. Then, a week later, fate, or perhaps Patricia's subtle design, intervened. I was attending a luncheon at the Women's League, a charitable organization I dutifully supported. As I was making my way to my designated table, I heard a familiar, melodic laugh that cut through the polite murmur. Patricia. She was at a table across the room, animatedly conversing with a small group. She wore a tailored linen suit in a soft cream color, a sharp contrast to the darker, more formal attire of the other women. A delicate silver pendant gleamed at her throat, drawing the eye to the graceful curve of her neck. As I watched, she gestured with an expressive hand, her fingers adorned with a single, unique silver ring. Her presence was like a splash of vibrant paint on a muted canvas, commanding attention without demanding it. Our eyes met again, this time closer. Her smile was immediate, genuine, and held that same familiar spark. She excused herself from her table, a fluid movement that drew every eye, and began to make her way towards me. My heart gave a tiny, involuntary flutter. "Clara, isn't it?" she asked, her voice a low, pleasant alto, as she extended a hand. Her grip was firm, warm, and surprisingly soft. "Patricia Thorne. We briefly crossed paths at the gala the other night." "Yes, Patricia," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "It's a pleasure to see you again." "Likewise," she said, her eyes scanning my face with an unsettling intensity, as if searching for something hidden. "You seemed thoughtful that evening." A pause, then a soft chuckle. Or perhaps just bored. I managed a small, almost imperceptible smile. "The gala can be rather predictable." "Precisely," she agreed, her smile widening. "Life, however, rarely is. Or at least it shouldn't be." Her gaze lingered for a beat, then she added, "I have a new exhibition opening at my gallery next month. It's a collection by an emerging sculptor, quite provocative. I think you might appreciate it. Perhaps you'd allow me to send you an invitation?" "I'd like that very much," I found myself saying, the words leaving my lips with an unexpected ease. "Excellent," she murmured, a hint of triumph in her eyes. "I'll be in touch." With another warm smile, she gently touched my arm, a fleeting contact that sent a shiver through me, before turning and gracefully returning to her table. Her touch, the warmth of her hand, lingered long after she was gone. Throughout the luncheon, I found my gaze drifting back to her, observing the way she interacted, the way she made others laugh. There was an authenticity to her that was both disarming and utterly captivating. The invitation arrived a few days later, beautifully printed on heavy cardstock. It wasn't just a generic invite, it was personally addressed, with a small, handwritten note from Patricia tucked inside. "Looking forward to seeing your thoughtful expression again." The evening of the exhibition, I found myself anticipating it with a strange mix of apprehension and excitement. My husband was, predictably, traveling. I arrived at Patricia's gallery, a sleek, modern space in the heart of the art district. She greeted me at the entrance, her emerald eyes sparkling under the gallery lights. She wore a tailored black jumpsuit, sophisticated and chic, yet it somehow highlighted her innate warmth. A strand of lustrous pearls adorned her neck, catching the light as she moved. "Clara, you came," she said, her voice a warm embrace. She didn't just shake my hand. She took it in both of hers, her thumbs gently brushing the back of my hand, sending a curious warmth through my palm. "I'm so glad." "The exhibition sounds fascinating," I replied, trying to keep my voice even, despite the sudden quickening of my pulse. "It is," she agreed, her gaze holding mine for a beat longer than polite. "Come, let me show you." As she guided me through the gallery, her hand occasionally brushed against my arm, a light, almost accidental touch that nonetheless registered with an acute sensitivity. Her voice, as she described the art, was rich and passionate, drawing me into her world. She leaned in once, to whisper a comment about a particularly abstract piece, her voice close to my ear, and I felt a startling jolt, a sudden awareness of her proximity, the subtle scent of her perfume, something complex and earthy, utterly intoxicating. My internal world, usually so ordered, felt increasingly chaotic. My upbringing, my social standing, the impossibility of these burgeoning feelings, it all clashed against the intoxicating allure of something new, something dangerously vibrant. It was a silent, internal struggle, the gnawing feeling of being trapped by my circumstances pitted against the rising tide of an unknown, exhilarating pull. Patricia, with her knowing eyes and subtle touches, was chipping away at the carefully constructed walls around me, one lingering glance, one soft whisper, one accidental brush of hands at a time. I found myself wanting more of it, this unsettling, intoxicating disruption. The exhibition became a turning point, a subtle but undeniable shift in the landscape of my days. Patricia had a way of drawing me out, not with forceful questions, but with an almost telepathic understanding, as if she could sense the unarticulated thoughts swirling within me. Our conversations, initially about art, broadened into discussions about literature, philosophy, and eventually life beyond the prescribed social circles. I found myself sharing observations, even vulnerabilities, that I had never voiced to anyone, certainly not to my husband or even my closest acquaintances. With Patricia, the words seemed to simply flow, unburdened by judgment or expectation. She had a remarkable talent for making me feel seen. It wasn't just her intense gaze, though that was part of it. It was the way she listened, truly listened, her head tilted slightly, her eyes never leaving mine, absorbing every nuance of my expression. She remembered details from our conversations, bringing them up later with an easy familiarity that was both disarming and profoundly comforting. Our accidental meetings became more frequent, feeling less like chance and more like a gentle, irresistible current drawing two objects together. A casual coffee at a secluded patisserie, a discussion about a new play at the theater, an invitation to a private book club she hosted. Each encounter was an increment, a slow burn that subtly intensified the connection between us. I began to notice every sensory detail about her with an almost alarming acuity. The subtle, smoky scent of her favorite Earl Grey tea, lingering on her clothes after our afternoon chats. The surprising softness of her hand when she would gesture, a stray touch against my arm or the back of my hand, sending a curious warmth through me. The way her laughter, a rich, melodic sound, could fill a room and momentarily chase away the carefully cultivated silence of my own life. Her style was as captivating as her personality. One afternoon, she wore a fitted silk blouse in a deep sapphire, the fabric shimmering with her movements, complemented by tailored trousers that emphasized her long, elegant legs. Another time, she adorned a finely knit cashmere sweater in charcoal, its softness inviting, its simplicity accentuating the graceful curve of her neck and her striking features. One afternoon, she invited me to her apartment, suggesting a private viewing of some of her personal art collection, pieces she deemed too intimate for the gallery. My heart gave a small, nervous flutter at the invitation, a thrill that was both exhilarating and slightly terrifying. Her apartment was an extension of her, a vibrant space filled with art, books, and lush green plants. It was eclectic, warm, and infused with a subtle, earthy fragrance I now recognized as uniquely hers. We drifted from one piece of art to another, her explanations insightful, her passion infectious. We stood before a large, abstract canvas, a riot of deep blues and greens. Patricia, her voice a low murmur, spoke of the artist's struggle and triumph. As she talked, she turned, her body subtly aligning with mine. Her hand, with that single unique silver ring, came up, not quite touching me, but hovering just beside my arm, the warmth radiating from her skin. She leaned in, her dark curls brushing against my cheek, and whispered, "This piece, it speaks of a hidden depth, a quiet storm beneath a calm surface." Her voice was close to my ear, sending a shiver, not of cold, but of pure, electric sensation, through me. The warmth of her body, so close to mine, was almost overwhelming. I could feel the subtle shift in the air pressure between us, the silent hum of unspoken energy. My blood quickened, a dizzying pulse pounding in my ears. I could smell the faintest hint of jasmine and something else, something uniquely her, intoxicating and alluring. My composure, usually so steadfast, wavered. My carefully constructed world, already showing faint cracks, felt dangerously close to crumbling. In that moment, surrounded by the vibrant art, enveloped by Patricia's intoxicating presence, I was acutely aware of the chasm between the life I led and the life I suddenly, fiercely, yearned for. The slow burn had become a searing heat, and I found myself on the precipice, teetering on the edge of an unknown, exhilarating desire. The air in Patricia's apartment was thick with unspoken possibilities. The scent of her, a captivating mix of jasmine and something indescribably earthy, mingled with the subtle aroma of old books and fresh coffee. My pulse thrummed, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs, a stark contrast to the outward calm I struggled to maintain. We had been discussing a particularly striking sculpture, an elegant serpentine form carved from dark wood, its curves both striking and strong. "It represents," Patricia murmured, her voice a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through the very air around us, the quiet strength of hidden feeling, the beauty in something that knows its own power but chooses its moment to reveal it. As she spoke, she turned, her body moving with an innate grace, bringing her closer to me. The space between us, already minimal, evaporated. Her eyes, those captivating pools of amber, locked onto mine with an intensity that stole my breath. There was a knowing depth in their depths, a silent question that bypassed all my carefully constructed defenses. She wore a loose-fitting silk tunic in a shade of deep plum that shimmered under the soft lamplight, its rich color echoing the subtle warmth in her gaze. My gaze inadvertently dropped to her lips, full and subtly curved, glistening slightly in the soft light. I felt an undeniable pull, a magnetic force drawing me closer. Every instinct screamed for caution, for retreat, for the safe, predictable confines of my old life. Yet another, more potent force held me captive, a yearning I hadn't known I possessed. Patricia lifted a hand, her fingers, long and slender, adorned with that single, unique silver ring. She didn't touch me, not yet. Instead, she gently tucked a stray strand of hair behind my ear, her fingertips brushing lightly against my temple. The delicate contact sent a shockwave through me, a delicious tremor that started at my scalp and rippled downwards. "Clara," she whispered, her voice barely audible, a silken thread weaving around my senses. The way she uttered my name, it wasn't a casual address, but a soft expression of recognition, an intimate revelation. "You carry so much unspoken beauty." Her words, so simple, yet so profound, shattered the last vestiges of my composure. I felt a blush creep up my neck, a foreign heat spreading across my cheeks. My mind raced, grappling with the sheer audacity of the moment, the dangerous precipice on which I stood. Then she moved. Slowly, deliberately, she took a step closer until our bodies were almost, but not quite, touching. I could feel the warmth radiating from her, the subtle sway of her hips. Her eyes never left mine, holding me captive, willing me to surrender. The air thickened, charged with an undeniable electricity. She raised her other hand, placing both on either side of my face, her thumbs gently tracing the line of my jaw. Her touch was incredibly soft, yet it felt like an undeniable claim. My breath hitched. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm, threatening to burst from my chest. I wanted to pull away, to regain control, but my limbs felt heavy, rooted to the spot. Patricia's head tilted, slowly, gracefully. Her gaze dropped to my lips, then back to my eyes, a silent invitation, an intoxicating dare. A soft, tantalizing smile played on her lips, a hint of wildness in her eyes. And then, with an almost imperceptible movement, she leaned in. Her lips, so soft and warm, brushed against mine. It was a feather-light touch, a mere suggestion, yet it ignited a firestorm within me. My eyes fluttered shut, surrendering to the sensation. She pulled back slightly, just enough to catch my breath, her gaze searching mine, as if asking for permission. I gave none, but my body, betraying every lesson of decorum and restraint, leaned into her, a silent, desperate plea. My hands, which had been clenched at my sides, instinctively rose, hovering uncertainly, then finding purchase on her slender waist. With a soft sound, a murmur that seemed to rumble from deep within her, Patricia closed the distance between us completely. Her lips settled firmly on mine. It was a kiss that consumed me, a dizzying plunge into an unknown depth of sensation. Her mouth was warm, incredibly soft, yet firm, moving with a confident, insistent rhythm. I felt a wild, untamed feeling unfurl within me, a release I hadn't realized I was so desperately craving. My mind went blank, all thought dissolving into pure sensation. The unexpected softness, the dizzying intensity, the raw connection that flared between us. I was lost, utterly, deliciously lost in the embrace of Patricia, in the sheer, undeniable reality of her kiss. It was a surrender, not just of my lips, but of a lifetime of carefully constructed barriers. And in that moment, pressed against her, I knew I never wanted to be found. The first sliver of dawn painted Patricia's apartment in hues of muted gray and soft rose. I lay tangled in her sheets, the silk cool against my skin, the lingering scent of her perfume a comforting presence. My head rested on the pillow that still bore the imprint of her head, and the warmth of her body, though she was no longer beside me, seemed to emanate from the mattress itself. A profound sense of disorientation warred with an unexpected, exhilarating calm. I had crossed a threshold, not just physically, but existentially. My eyes fluttered open, adjusting to the unfamiliar light. This wasn't my meticulously ordered bedroom, with its heavy drapes and antique furniture. This was Patricia's space, vibrant, a little bohemian, utterly alive. A half-finished sketch lay on a nearby table, art books were stacked precariously on the floor, and a cluster of succulents thrived on the windowsill. It was a space that spoke of creativity, passion, and an unapologetic embrace of life, a stark contrast to the sterile perfection of my own home. A memory, vivid and potent, washed over me. The intoxicating warmth of her body pressed against mine, the brush of her soft curls against my cheek, the lingering trace of our kiss. The sheer audacity of what had transpired, the raw, undeniable feeling that had consumed me, left me breathless. It wasn't just physical. It was an unveiling, a profound emotional release that had shattered every preconceived notion I held about myself. I heard the soft clinking of ceramic from the kitchen. Patricia. My heart gave a startled leap. How was I to face her? What did I say? The careful composure I usually wore felt like a distant, ill-fitting garment. A moment later, she appeared in the doorway, a simple white shirt unbuttoned halfway, revealing the elegant line of her throat, and dark linen trousers. Her dark hair was tousled, a few rebellious curls framing her face, but her eyes, those captivating amber pools, were clear and steady. They held no judgment, no regret, only a soft tenderness and a knowing affection that disarmed me completely. She carried 2 steaming mugs and a plate of sliced fruit. "Good morning," she murmured, her voice a low, melodic alto that sent a shiver through me. She moved with an easy grace, setting the mugs on a small bedside table before settling beside me on the edge of the bed. Her proximity was immediate, intimate, yet it felt utterly natural. "Good morning," I managed, my voice a little husky. My eyes darted to hers, then away, then back again, trying to decipher the unwritten rules of this new territory. Patricia simply smiled, a soft, reassuring curve of her lips. She handed me a mug, its warmth seeping into my fingers. Coffee, black. And some fruit. You looked like you needed something bright. She remembered. My preference for black coffee, a detail I had mentioned in passing weeks ago. It was a small thing, yet it spoke volumes, a testament to her attentiveness, her ability to truly see me. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the only sounds the soft clinking of spoons against ceramic and the distant hum of city life. The morning light filtered through the sheer curtains, casting a soft glow on Patricia's face, highlighting the subtle curve of her cheekbones and the delicate arch of her brows. There was a quiet strength in her stillness, a peaceful confidence that seemed to anchor me. "Are you all right, Clara?" she asked, her voice gentle, devoid of pressure. I took a slow sip of coffee, its warmth spreading through me. The question hung in the air, weighted with implication. I don't know," I confessed, the words raw, honest. "I feel untethered. And yet, strangely, more myself than I ever have." A small, knowing smile played on Patricia's lips. Her fingers reached out, gently brushing a stray curl from my face, her touch incredibly soft. It's a dizzying place to be, isn't it? When the world you thought you knew suddenly shifts beneath your feet. I nodded, the truth of her words resonating deep within me. The carefully constructed world I had inhabited for so long, the one built on duty, decorum, and suppressed emotion, felt like a distant, fragile dream. In its place was this raw, exhilarating reality, this profound connection with Patricia. The shame, the guilt I thought I would feel, were strangely absent, replaced instead by a profound sense of liberation. It was a shattering, yes, but also an unveiling, a revelation of a part of myself I hadn't known existed. Patricia leaned in, her gaze warm and unwavering. "There are no expectations, Clara. Only this. This moment." She didn't press for promises, didn't demand explanations. Her eyes simply held mine, offering acceptance, understanding, and an unspoken invitation to explore this new, intoxicating freedom. The weight of our shared secret, the unspoken agreement between us, settled around me, heavy and intoxicating. I looked into her eyes, seeing not just a deep connection, but a profound empathy, a sense of being truly seen and valued in a way I never had been before. And in that quiet moment, as the sun began to rise higher, painting the room in vibrant hues, I knew, with a certainty that resonated through every fiber of my being, that I couldn't go back to who I was. This new, exhilarating version of Clara, forged in the warmth of Patricia's presence, was here to stay. The days that followed Patricia's apartment became a delicate dance, a meticulously choreographed ballet between two vastly different worlds. My public life, with its predictable rhythm of charity galas, committee meetings, and polite society dinners, continued unabated. I moved through it with the same practiced composure, the same serene smile, but beneath the surface, a subtle revolution was brewing. The fire that Patricia had ignited within me burned with a quiet intensity, illuminating the dullness of my previous existence. My husband, absorbed in his own affairs and perpetually distant, noticed nothing. My polite inquiries about his travels, his work, were met with equally polite but dismissive answers. His infidelity, once a quiet ache, now felt like a distant, irrelevant hum, a mere backdrop to the vibrant, secret life I was carving out for myself. The guilt I occasionally felt for my deception was quickly overshadowed by the sheer, exhilarating thrill of it, the heightened senses, the delicious danger of my secret existence. Our stolen moments became the oxygen I breathed. A clandestine coffee in a secluded corner of a new cafe, her hand brushing mine under the table, a brief, knowing glance that spoke volumes. A private art consultation at her gallery, which inevitably led to a shared bottle of wine and hushed conversations, her fingers tracing invisible patterns on my arm. A late-night text, a playful emoji, a simple "thinking of you," that sent a jolt of warmth through me, anticipating our next encounter. Patricia had a way of drawing me in, of making every interaction feel like a conspiratorial secret. She would sometimes meet me in places just outside my usual orbit, a small, independent bookstore I'd never noticed before, a botanical garden tucked away behind towering office buildings. These places, imbued with the magic of our stolen time, began to feel more real, more mine, than the grand, impersonal spaces of my official life. Our connection, once an electrifying jolt, deepened into a profound closeness. Each touch, each kiss, was an exploration and unveiling. Patricia, with her gentle persistence and intuitive understanding, seemed to know exactly how to awaken parts of me I didn't even know existed. She approached me with a tenderness that was both reverent and eager, her touch igniting a symphony of sensations that left me breathless and yearning for more. The way her fingers would trace the curve of my hip, the soft press of her lips against my neck, the intoxicating whisper of my name against my skin. It was a language I was just learning, and I found myself fluent in its meaning. One evening, after a particularly draining day of social obligations, I slipped away to Patricia's apartment. The contrast was stark, the cold formality of my evening attire versus the warm, inviting chaos of her living space. She met me at the door, her eyes immediately seeking mine, her smile a beacon. She reached out, her fingers gently untucking a strand of hair that had escaped my elaborate updo. "Long day in the gilded cage," she murmured, her thumb brushing against my cheek, a silent understanding passing between us. I simply nodded, leaning into her touch. The tension that had coiled in my shoulders all day began to unravel under her gentle hand. She led me to her sofa, her movements unhurried, graceful. She poured 2 glasses of amber liquid, a rich single malt, and handed one to me. As I sipped, the warmth spreading through me, she began to unfasten the intricate buttons of my dress, her fingers deft and tender. The cool air against my bared back, the soft rustle of silk as it pooled at my feet, the undeniable connection in her eyes. It was a sacred ritual of shedding the old, embracing the new. As the layers of my formal life fell away, so too did the last vestiges of my reserve. In Patricia's embrace, I was no longer Clara, the dutiful wife, the composed socialite. I was simply Clara, a woman discovering the raw, exhilarating landscape of her own self. Her hands, strong yet tender, moved over my bare skin, mapping a territory I was only just beginning to explore. Her lips found mine, a deep, consuming kiss that spoke of yearning and belonging. The world outside, with its expectations and its judgments, faded into insignificance, leaving only the intoxicating reality of our intertwined presence, the symphony of our shared breaths, and the profound, undeniable connection that bloomed between us. I was changing, subtly but irrevocably. My eyes, once guarded, now held a new depth, a nascent glow that only Patricia seemed to notice. My polite facade remained, but a vibrant, untamed fire now burned beneath it, fueled by a bond that was both forbidden and utterly essential. My husband continued his oblivious existence, while I, his dutiful wife, found myself transformed, liberated, and utterly consumed by the passionate, secret connection with another woman. The intoxicating rhythm of our clandestine life, once a thrilling rush, began to acquire a new, heavier undertone. Each stolen moment, while intensely cherished, felt increasingly fragile, shadowed by the constant, low thrum of apprehension. The thrill of deception had not vanished, but it was now laced with a growing awareness of the precarious. Tightrope I walked, a lingering scent on my clothes, a late-night text accidentally left open, a casual question from a friend about my whereabouts. Each instance sent a small jolt of fear through me, a chilling reminder of the consequences should my carefully constructed double life unravel. One afternoon, during an impromptu visit to my favorite boutique, I saw one of my husband's business associates, Mrs. Davies, a woman known for her keen observations and even keener gossip. Our eyes met across a rack of evening gowns. Her smile was polite, but her gaze lingered on me for a fraction of a second too long, a subtle hint of suspicion in her otherwise placid expression. My heart gave a violent lurch, a cold dread washing over me. Had she seen me leave Patricia's gallery that morning? Had she noticed the faint, lingering scent of jasmine on my scarf? I quickly composed myself, offering a practiced smile and a brief, empty exchange of pleasantries, but the encounter left me rattled, the vulnerability of my secret suddenly glaringly apparent. This increasing pressure forced a deeper introspection. What was this powerful, all-consuming connection I felt for Patricia? Was it merely the intoxicating thrill of rebellion, a desperate escape from the suffocating confines of my marriage? Or was it something more profound, something permanent, a bond that transcended societal expectations and personal histories? Patricia, in her quiet strength, seemed to sense my internal turmoil. She never pressed, never demanded labels or declarations, but her steady gaze, her unwavering presence, offered a profound solace. Her tenderness was a balm to my soul, her passion a constant reaffirmation of the vibrant new self I was discovering. She continued to awaken my senses, her hands gentle as they explored the new contours of my being, her kisses a promise of a future I was only just beginning to imagine. In her embrace, I felt an undeniable sense of belonging, a raw, aching need for her that had become as vital as breath itself. One evening, after we had shared an intimate moment, lying entwined in the soft glow of her bedside lamp, I found myself tracing the line of her jaw with my finger, mesmerized by the subtle pulse beating beneath her skin. The silence in the room was rich, comfortable, yet it felt heavy with unspoken questions. "Patricia," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. "What are we doing?" She turned her head, her amber eyes soft, searching mine. Her fingers found mine, lacing our hands together. "We are living, Clara," she replied, her voice low and steady, truly living for the first time. Her answer was simple, yet it resonated with an undeniable truth. It wasn't an evasion, but an invitation to embrace the present, to trust the profound connection blooming between us. But even as her words comforted me, the dilemma persisted. The comfort of my gilded cage, with its promise of security and social standing, now felt like a suffocating illusion. The terrifying, exhilarating freedom I found with Patricia was a vibrant, undeniable reality, but it came with its own set of dangers, its own precarious uncertainties. I looked at her, truly looked at the woman who had so irrevocably altered the course of my life. Her dark hair was fanned across the pillow, her skin luminous in the soft light. There was a quiet strength in her profile, a fierce independence that I admired, and a profound tenderness that had completely disarmed me. I knew, with a certainty that settled deep in my bones, that I could not go back to who I was before her. The old Clara, the dutiful wife, was a ghost. This new Clara, raw, exposed, and fiercely alive, craved Patricia with an intensity that bordered on desperation. The question lingered, heavy and insistent. How long could this clandestine dance continue? How long before the two worlds collided? As the first hint of dawn began to lighten the sky outside Patricia's window, casting long, pale shadows across her room, I knew that a choice, a terrifying, life-altering choice, was looming on the horizon. The delicate balance I had so carefully maintained was teetering, and soon, very soon, something would have to give.